lumber. We have great lumber. All I have to do is free it up from the environmental lunatics. We don't need anything that they have.
All right, that's enough of him for now, and welcome back to the channel. Look, I know we are a Canadian-focused channel, but when your neighbor to the south starts lighting their backyard on fire, it's kind of hard not to pull up a chair and sit back and look. And let's be honest, what's happening down the south right now? It's less of a government and more of a reality show with no script and way too much shouting. If you're new here and enjoy watching the train wreck from a safe distance, hit like and subscribe. It will really help us out. Let's get into it.
Head-turning comments from President Trump where he sure seems to question something fundamental to our democracy. What happened was he had an interview, it was a new one, and he was asked if, as president, he needs to uphold the U.S. Constitution. Multiple times he answered, quote, "I don't know." He also made new announcements over tariffs on another industry, Hollywood.
The president's unpredictable trade moves continued over the weekend. Last night, he said he is imposing a 100% tariff on movies produced outside the United States. And he said he's doing it for two reasons. Number one, because he thinks the U.S. movie industry is dying. And number two, because films produced overseas are, in his words, a national security threat.
If they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, then we should have a tariff on movies that come in.
Kansas farmers are publicly regretting voting for Donald Trump and wish they would have read Project 2025 now that Donald Trump's policies are directly affecting them, specifically the cuts to USAID funding, which would have been used to purchase farmers' goods. Listen to what the executive director of the Kansas Farmers Union had to say about it.
There are a lot of people who are very concerned out there who voted for this administration. But, you know, they wrote it all down in Project 2025. I guess we should have paid a little closer attention to what was in that.
Yeah, you probably should have. It's not as if people weren't warning you. It's not as if Kamala Harris went out every single day and warned Americans about Project 2025. But you believe the guy that can never tell the truth when he said, "I know nothing about it." And now you're suffering, but the worst part is we're all suffering. There's hungry people around the world that are being affected by that funding cut. So yes, welcome to the find out phase. We're all here. Have a seat, grab yourself some ramen. It's the only thing that's cheap anymore, and enjoy.
Japan, one of America's closest allies, just threatened to crash our economy if Trump keeps disrespecting them. Yes, you heard that right. Japan's finance minister just warned the U.S. that if Trump keeps pushing reckless tariffs and insulting their leadership, Japan could use the nuclear option, dumping their $1 trillion in U.S. Treasury holdings. Let that sink in. Not China, not Russia, Japan, the ally we've stood beside for decades, now threatening to pull the plug on our markets. And you know why? Because Trump keeps bragging about a deal with Japan that doesn't exist, because he's treated Japan's trade team like a bunch of interns, because he disrespects leaders, talks in circles, and tries to bully everyone like it's a reality show. And Japan, they've had enough. Their prime minister just said, "We're not rushing. We won't be disrespected. Japan will not keep conceding without return." Even Japan's parliament is calling Trump's negotiation tactics extortion by juvenile delinquents. Their lead negotiator says talks are going badly. Their finance minister is now floating a global financial shock as leverage. This isn't just posturing, this is panic. Because if Japan, the most loyal, polite, diplomatically disciplined nation on earth, is threatening economic retaliation, what does that say about where we are? And here's the kicker. Japan knows the political cost. Their government fears that if they submit to Trump, they'll get mocked, look weak, and be punished at the ballot box. And they're not wrong. We've seen this before in Canada, in Australia, in the UK. The Trump effect isn't just in America. It's spreading. Disrespect your allies, they fight back. Obey him, you collapse. So here's the question. When our friends start sounding like enemies, how much longer can we pretend Trump is just tough on trade and not a threat to global stability? Drop your thoughts, because if Japan's ready to crash our markets, you better believe the world is watching.
If the president brings the legal profession to heel, what situation is the country in then?
No rule of law. You're in a dictatorship. That's what happened in China. It happens in Russia. These are legal systems that look like legal systems, but in fact are controlled by a dictatorship.
Donald Trump did 3 things during the Pope's funeral which have led many to call him a total disgrace for not showing respect during the service for the late Pope Francis. People were originally angry at Trump for wearing a blue suit to the funeral, but now video has come out of him doing 2 further things which have left people hopping mad. During the service, Trump was caught fiddling and playing with his phone and chewing gum whilst others were paying attention to the service.
Some Catholics were not so happy about the image of you looking like the Pope.
Oh, I see. You mean they can't take a joke? You don't mean the Catholics, you mean the fake news media. Not the Catholics loved it.
Donald Trump finally did something so catastrophically stupid that even the sycophants in his own administration had to step in and say, no, we won't be doing that, actually. Late Thursday evening, Donald Trump posted online that he would be canceling Veterans Day and renaming it as Victory Day for World War I, and would also be declaring May 8th to be Victory Day for World War II. Well, it didn't take long for the White House to intervene and immediately backtrack on everything that he had posted, telling ABC News less than 24 hours later that they would not be renaming Veterans Day, and that at most they would send out an additional proclamation on the day. And almost certainly the reason that they backtracked on this, and for the first time possibly ever directly contradicted what Dear Leader wanted, is the fact that it would be an unforced political error of truly epic proportions for Donald Trump to do this, for several reasons. First of all, Donald Trump's post made it very clear that he only wants to celebrate America's victories and therefore celebrate the veterans that were involved in America's victory. Here's the problem. More than 99% of currently living veterans in the United States fought in conflicts that did not constitute an American victory. So renaming Veterans Day to focus it only on the conflicts that involved American victories would be, in fact, shitting on the service of 99% of living veterans. The fact that any politician would ever even be willing to consider that shows just an insane lack of any political instinct whatsoever. But I imagine they also pointed out to Dear Leader that much as he continues to insist otherwise, he doesn't actually have the power to unilaterally rename a federal holiday. That takes an act of Congress. So while I have no doubt Donald Trump could absolutely bully Republicans in Congress to do whatever he wanted. However, anytime they spend doing that, 1 is time that they aren't spending on Donald Trump's agenda. 2, would look extremely terrible to the American people currently suffering through a recession and struggling to put food on their tables for the president to be like, yeah, I know you can't afford groceries, but we have bigger fish to fry. Namely, I want to rename Veterans Day. Not a great move politically. And 3, he would be effectively ending the careers of any Republican soon to be up for re-election in a swing district and maybe even some non-swing districts, because he would be forcing them to go on the record with a vote either shitting on the service of 99% of living veterans or directly contradicting Dear Leader. And either one would signal the end of their political careers. And look, in the grand scheme of things, this is such a minor blip on the radar. It's stupid, it's offensive, but it's also not incredibly important. But I do think that it's worth noting, because the next time that someone tries to tell you that, no, you don't understand, Donald Trump is playing 4D chess, you can show them this and be like, no, this very stupid man is eating the checkers and drooling on the table.